The process of science. When we study the world around us, we use a process of observing, describing, and making conclusions from evidence. Everyone uses it, even you. It is a way to solve problems. Here are some questions that scientists are searching the answers for. What is the cure for cancer? Which deodorant works the longest? How can we make the best insect repellent? Or how can Americans be healthier and curb childhood obesity? In the process of science, we must identify a problem or question. Then use observation and research to help us formulate a hypothesis. Afterwards, experiment, collect and analyze results. From those results, form a conclusion, and then communicate the results with the scientific community and citizens of the world. In the process of science, the problem or question often begins the process, but can sometimes come later after investigation. The problem or question is developing a question or problem that can be solved through experimentation. Observation and research is then making observations and researching your topic of interest. Observations use the 5 senses: sight, taste, touch, smell, and hearing, as well as measurements in the metric system, like grams or kilograms, liters, meters. When formulating a hypothesis, make sure you predict a possible answer to the problem or statement in an if-then statement. An example would be, if soil temperatures rise, then plant growth will increase. The experiment section of the process of science is what most people are pretty excited about, and is usually pretty fun. But sometimes experiments can take a long time, or they have to do several trials. In the experiment, develop and follow a procedure where results are measured. Include a detailed materials list, so if somebody ever wants to replicate or do your experiment, they know how to. Collect and analyze results. This is where you look at the data that was produced from your experiment and begin to think and discuss what the results mean and display results with tables, graphs, and photographs. After looking at that data, you formulate a conclusion, which accepts or rejects the hypothesis, and from the data makes recommendations for further study and possible improvements to the procedure. Communicate the results. Present findings and have others replicate and do your experiment. When scientists share their experiment in the scientific community, they urge and hope that other people will also do the same experimentation and give them feedback to see if they're finding the same conclusions and what their data might reveal. Now, there's a great song on how to remember the scientific process. So, over hills, through rain, and clouds repeat. The science process you see. Now, if you're goofy and silly like me, I like to sing a little goofy and silly because then it helps me remember things and then I don't feel so nervous about my singing. So feel free to sing along. It is to the same tune as Going to Grandmother's House. So over hills, through rain and clouds, repeat. Over hills, through rain and clouds, repeat. Over hills, through rain and clouds, repeat. The science process you see. And that's where you get silly and crazy. But over stands for observation, hills for hypothesis, through for test or experiment, rain for record data, and for analyze data, clouds for conclusion, repeat, repeat for replication, or having people test out your experiment or you doing your experiment several times. I know it's silly, but you should totally learn this song because it's going to help you remember our steps and the process of science, which will be on our quiz later. Now, the last part of the process of science are three really essential parts that sometimes can get a little confusing. So we're going to spend some more time practicing and learning about them. The independent variable. The independent or manipulated variable is a factor that's intentionally changed by the scientist. So when the scientist is planning their experiment, these are the things that they want to really observe and decide and compare and change. So examples of an independent variable would be choosing the type of soap to test, choosing the area to take samples from, and how much water a plant gets. Those are all things that the scientist can intentionally change, making it the independent variable. The dependent variable or responding variable is the result of the independent variable. So based upon those choices the scientists make, these are the results or the dependent variables. So which soap actually cleaned better, or which area shows the best sample to make collections, or how tall the plant actually grew depending on how much water it was given. So these things the scientists cannot control. That's why it's called the dependent variable, because it kind of depends on the choices that the scientist makes. In the control group, that's the group that all the other variables are compared to. The control group may receive no treatment, or it's something that we leave as a baseline for variables to be compared to. For example, using no soap, we look at different types of soap, but we have one that doesn't get soap. Or we have a shirt that stays completely clean, that didn't even get soiled. Not taking a sample, or setting a baseline of how much water. Like here's the medium amount of water, and then we're going to look above and below those amounts to be able to compare. So that's the process of science, and we're excited to continue to learn and practice together. Thanks, guys.